Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning and welcome to our study of Rinzin Jigme Lingpa's Steps to the Great Perfection. I hope everyone is well. As always, please generate the awareness that the teaching we're studying here is a means to eliminate the confusion that drives all sentient beings. And as such, we're on to a project that really concerns all sentient beings. So we shouldn't regard this as our own private pursuit of spiritual growth, nirvana, enlightenment, but rather recognizing that this is really getting right to the heart of what ails all sentient beings. And so with the teachings that we get, with the theoretical teachings that we get, we're being exposed to the perspectives and the science of this path. And then the implication really is that we need to actually take this further within the actual application. This is all a practice of the mind and transforming the mind. And in approaching this teaching known as the Great Perfection, it's important to realize that we're not just looking at the mind in its perfected state. The Great Perfection is not limited to just a few instructions on, of course, indispensable, profound instructions, and there are many, on how to settle in the nature of reality. But it also comes, like the rest of Buddhism, with a keen awareness of the nature of suffering and how mind exists in its confused condition. So with the study of the Great Perfection teaching, with the study of the Buddhist teaching in general, we're looking into a tradition where a heritage, a scientific heritage, if you like, of knowledge of the mind. And this knowledge of the mind extends far beyond the sciences that we're familiar with, which only really look at what can be experienced in this particular life, what's material, what's measurable, quantifiable, what we could call objectivist science. And that's all very good, but it does not really give any insight into the nature of consciousness, into the nature of mind. And this is what we have here. Now, as far as knowing reality goes, from the Buddhist perspective, knowing consciousness is the key to knowing all of reality. Everything that we know is filtered through consciousness. Everything that we perceive goes through consciousness. Everything that we project and label and so forth goes through consciousness. So consciousness is really what we could say that which has primacy in terms of our existence. And so the sages who have realized the nature of consciousness, they wouldn't have something to show. They wouldn't have something concrete, even though we could say their persons and the heritage that we're connected to here, the lineage, of course, displays extraordinary outer science of enlightenment. Then this science of the mind itself, by nature, is intangible. And yet it is what creates so many different spaces that we live in. Mind is the most significant part of our life. That's where all our happiness, all our suffering takes place. And everything we do really is intended to create the causes of happiness. Even though we're confused, we pursue actions wishing to attain happiness. So mind is key, and in listening to the teachings on the nature of mind, it also includes looking at the confused condition of samsara. And so in the present work that we're looking at, some of the information that we get might be shocking in terms of the delusional madness that mind can spin into and the conditions of what we call the lower realms. It's unknown unless you really know the nature of the mind. some of us, just in this life, we've had opportunity to experience different spaces of mind, maybe different conditions of madness or imbalance and so forth. And we've also experienced happiness. So we have no doubt that the mind is capable of creating all these various spaces. But of course, what we're talking about here goes far further than just the experiences we humans might have within a very finite span of life. And we're looking into what mind can create in all its various capacities of delusion. And so we look at all the aspects of samsara, the higher and the lower realms, and this we've looked at. And like I said, this might be shocking to some of us to hear this, and we might obviously have some doubts and reservations with regards to the information. We might think that it's culturally conditioned information and so on. But I doubt very much that the masters would bother really to include that here. There are cultural aspects to Buddhism for sure, but when it comes to the teachings that we have here, we are really just talking about consciousness and how it manifests. Of course, the language also could be somewhat culturally conditioned, obviously. But the information we're getting about the realms of samsara, I think we should not view that as something other than coming from a really authoritative understanding of what mind is. And similarly also with enlightenment. Also in our culture, we don't have really an understanding of enlightenment. It's not part of our tradition of science. It's not part of our tradition of psychology and the humanities and so forth. It's an unknown. So also there we need to be aware that we have a lot to learn. So with modern persons engaging in the practice of the Buddhist teaching, we need to be aware that there's a lot that we'll encounter that doesn't necessarily fit in with what we were brought up with. At the same time, also, we should appreciate that the Buddhist teaching is founded on the same, what we could call epistemic premises. The science of it is based on not belief, but observation, empirical experience, or certainly within the realm of the subjective, of consciousness, that which is known. So we're not talking about beliefs or a priori metaphysical positions of any kind. And in this way, it's sometimes a bit questionable whether Buddhism really could qualify as a religion just from the point of view of its epistemic premises in terms of its science. But of course, Buddhism does deal with what is beyond this life, and to some extent then we can say it's justified, it's classified as religion. But certainly when it comes to the foundations for the knowledge, we need to see this it shares with the natural sciences. So thank you very much for just allowing me to say a few things, which I do think are important really in engaging with this study. And these are perspectives that we encounter continually if we're studying words of my perfect teacher, torchlighting the path to certainty, and certainly also this this particular study, Steps to the Great Perfection. So let's keep that in mind. Where is that beautiful scene with the mountain? I think this is, what was it called? This is a picture by Matthew Ricard. What's it called? Chakra Latse. I think that's what it said, but I don't know where it is. I think it probably is Eastern Tibet, but yeah, it's quite beautiful, really. Okay, so let's see here. There you have it in its complete glory. Lovely, isn't it? I'll look a bit more into where it is. Chakratlatse. So looking at our text, this Buddha here, by the way, is, I'll just do that first today. So this is the 6th of the 12 Dzogchen teachers, and it's called Meribawa. Those of you who are familiar with Ngondro Rinpoche, you remember his place in Italy was called Meribawa, Blazing Fire Mountain. So in that place then, in the charnel ground, delighting in the great secret, the teacher, great powerful warrior, Pao Shunu Tobden, taught a retinue of 7 headed by the Bodhisattva vigorous cloud, numerous tantras including the Father Tantra and Mother Tantras, during the time when a lifespan could last 60,000 years. So this information we have from the Bima Nyingtik, from the heart essence of Vimalamitra, and there's probably also in some of the other teachings we have it. So in that sense, there's the scriptural basis is Bima Nyingtik, and also in some of the other Dzogchen Tantras, I think there's reference to these 12 teachers. Anyway, these are part of the Dzogchen lineage. And here, by the way, you have up on the very top here, you have Longchenpa, Longchen Rabjam. Okay, so we've looked presently in the fourth Lojong, the fourth mind training, and it is about the teacher and the value, the essential value of having a teacher and the teacher accepting us and also providing the liberating instructions. Again, this is very different from the kind of teacher-student relationship that we're familiar with within modern culture. There's not really the same degree of, the teacher is not a commodity. The teacher is not somebody that we pay and then he's supposed to or she's supposed to do something. There is a very refined relationship here of gauging the nature of the teacher. And of course, the premise is that we have found an authentic teacher. We looked at that last time. It has to be an authentic guru. But then once we have found somebody who's authentic, to really suss out or gauge or be sensitized to the teacher, there's this openness, which is this humble interest of devotion that's so essential. So we're going to look now at how to approach the teacher in terms of serving a teacher in thought, and then we'll look at serving a teacher in action or in deed. So serving a teacher in thought. Next comes the actual practice of serving a teacher, of which there are two forms: serving a teacher in thought and serving a teacher in deed. The first of these is explained in the Dharani of the Jewel Lamp. Developing faith is the prerequisite, like a mother. It safeguards all positive qualities and causes them to develop. It clears away doubt and delivers one from the rivers of suffering. Faith characterizes the city of happiness and goodness. Faith clears away impurities and clarifies the mind. It eliminates pride and is the root of respect. Faith is the supreme wealth, treasure, and support. Like a hand, it is the root of gathering virtue. So faith is something that lies beyond the linear processes of the rational mind. And of course, in Buddhism, we're very comfortable with the rational mind, and this lies at the foundation of our understanding of reality. At the same time, that which really deeply moves the mind and that which enables us to see that which is beyond just the linear conceptual mind is then faith. And so all the qualities that really touch deeply within the primordial goodness of our mind is really something that is brought forth through faith. As shown here, Jigme Lingpa then writes, it is absolutely necessary to avoid treating one's teacher as an equal and to have heartfelt, unshakable faith, just as noble Sadaprarudita did when he observed the enlightened qualities of the Bodhisattva Dhammogata. Let's see what they had to say about that. The tale of Sadaprarudita is recounted in detail in Gambopa Jewel Ornament of Liberation. Okay, I'll see if I can get that story. But so we have many stories about how teachers, great masters in the past, served their teachers, and of course we really take them as not a different cultural context, but just as examples of a universal process of engaging with someone. Faith is this open quality that allows what we call blessing. Jigme Lingpa continues, our own impure karma may cause us to misperceive the acts of our gurus, even those who are fully qualified. We miss the point. that they are trying to convey with the various activities they perform, those that are provisional, definitive, covert, and intentional. And they appear to us as having a mixture of faults and virtues. When this occurs, we need to stop our judgmental thoughts. If we can stop them, it's only natural that we will automatically perceive everything the Guru does as sublime. So with the actions of the teacher, we would perceive the teacher not as ordinary. We would perceive the teacher as the Buddha manifest in front of us, as the guide to enlightenment. And as such, there's not a single of the teacher's actions, however banal and ordinary they might seem, which does not come from that place of enlightenment. There's a story in the life of one of the lineage masters, in this lineage, the Longchen, a great master called Khenpo Ngakchong. Now, Jigme Lingpa had a student called Jigme Lingpa, who had a student called Paltram, who had a student called Lungtok, Nyushu Lungtok. And Nyushu Lungtok was quite old when his student, who was predicted by Paltram to really be an incarnation of Vimalamitra. So Lungtok was old when his student Khenpo Ngaga, or Khenpo Ngakchong, was attending to him. And as Nyushu Lungtok was old, then Khenpo Ngakchong had to help him to the toilet. And the system then was that there was sort of, to enable the old lama's robe to come up, there was actually sort of something that can be pulled. And Khenpo Ngakchong, he says, do you want me to, he was being a bit, I think, jocular, and he says, as the old lama is about to do his business, he says, okay, I'll pull up your tail. And as the old lama is sitting there doing his business, he says to Khenpo Ngakchong, and of course Khenpo Ngakchong had to be there for this, he says, you know what, remember when you're with the teacher, there's never a time when your teacher is not the Dharmakaya itself. Always remember to see if the teacher is Dharmakaya. So this appeals to when the teacher is giving great empowerment, and also in the most ordinary of activities. And implicit here is that the teacher might be giving teachings that enable us to understand things like impermanence or the shortcomings of the afflictive emotions, which is provisional, and definitive teachings, absolute teachings on the nature of mind, covert teachings, which it's not there's a meaning hidden behind them. The teacher might, for example, not want to see a student, and then we don't know why, but it might actually be to purify the student's bad karma. And intentional is then also that some of these teachings, they might be delivered one way, but or some actions might be delivered one way, but they have the objective of the process might be leading to something else, again, beyond the linear rationality. So this is where we want really to have the openness that perceives everything the Guru does as sublime. Jigme Lingpa continues, therefore, all our misperceptions of the Guru's activities need to be consciously addressed and remedied in the following way. If a negative thought suddenly arises concerning the goodness or badness of the Guru's behavior, the way he or she imparts advice, or even about something as insignificant as the way he or she dresses, you should address it as soon as it manifests and avoid pursuing such ego fixation. So this doesn't mean that we're blind to that the teacher obviously might be behaving in strange ways. We might have to go through a process of trying to understand that, but we really need to all the time take it back to ourselves and seeing it as our projection. So addressing this issue, then Jigme Lingpa continues, rather think to yourself, it is impossible for a miserable being like me to say that such an extraordinary guru like this has these faults and shortcomings. It is the strength of my own habitual karma and afflictions from time immemorial that makes the Guru seem flawed. What difference is there between this and the strands of hair falling from the sky that are seen by an old woman who eats henbane, or a conch appearing yellow to somebody afflicted with jaundice? I'm not quite sure of this. We very often give the example of the subjective projections as being like having what's called ophthalmia and falling hairs on the eyes. And it also I'm not sure about this thing, and I'm not sure what henbane even is. Maybe some of you could help me. And then we, of course, have the image of the conch that appears yellow to someone afflicted with jaundice. So that is what we see as projection. And we know that the conch is white. And yet we also know right now we're seeing it as yellow. So if somebody says, is that conch, what color is the conch? We'll say, even though we're looking at it and we're seeing it as yellow, we'll say, no, the conch is white. But we just know that presently, due to our subjective condition, then we're not seeing it properly. Henbane is a herb. Okay. So anyway, this so this might produce some sort of optical illusion of some sort. Yeah, it's a psychoactive something. Henbane, a coarse and poisonous Eurasian plant of the nightshade family, with sticky hairy leaves and an unpleasant smell. A psychoactive drink prepared from the henbane plant. Okay, so a bit like datura and psychotropics. Yeah. How can I be sure that the guru isn't displaying these impure activities on purpose, in a way that intentionally corresponds to my own behavior, my heart pierced as it is by the 5 arrows of desire? Even the supreme guide Shakyamuni, who completely rid himself of all shortcomings and perfected all positive qualities, was perceived as a massive fault by the monk Sunakshatra Devadatta, the 6 Hindu teachers, and other individuals. Likewise, the bodhisattvas of the past, the learned and accomplished Abbot Shantrakshita, the master, Padmasambhava, King Chichondes and his masters, were seen as criminals by the Burmpos and evil hostile ministers. There is no This is no different than what happened with noble Asanga, who saw the invincible protector Maitreya as a dog, whose hindquarters were crawling with maggots. So, as you might remember, certainly Devadatta, who was a cousin of the Buddha, attended him and learned all the teachings what the Buddha gave. He never saw the Buddha as perfect, and said there was absolutely no difference between himself, Devadatta, and the Buddha, except the Buddha had this aura. And also Devadatta later began to appropriate his own students, taking them from the Buddha's followers, and created a big schism in the Sangha. And then we have so there you have an example of impure perception. And also we have this famous example with Asanga, who, after having purified his obscurations for many years, was able to see Maitreya, but he was only able to actually perceive an old dog. And since the dog was being eaten, was wounded, it had the hind part of its body was rotting away, and it was crawling with maggots. Asanga, who at this point had so much compassion, just wanted to help the dog. And then when he saw what needed to be done, namely get rid of all the maggots, he realized that he was going to squish the maggots if he took them off with his fingers. And so he decided to simply suck with his tongue, suck the maggots off the dog. Such was his compassion. And at that point, then the dog transformed into Maitreya, and he realized this was Maitreya. But because of his obscurations until then, he couldn't see it. Thanks to his practice, he finally could see Maitreya as a dog. So there was already something happening. But finally, what really sort of did away his final obscurations was then the compassion that he felt. So all of these are similes for obscurations. So according to the meeting of Father and Son Sutra, the blissful one, meaning the Buddha, even took the form of a demon to work for the welfare of sentient beings. So seeing the Buddha as a demon is my own impure perception, objectively speaking, for there never were any flaws. So this kind of attitude we work on. You should generate certainty about this and think it through over and over, for this will enable you to overpower the misconceptions of the one who sees faults. It is stated in the summarized meaning of the Tantras, regard all the Guru's actions as the actions of a Buddha. View his sleeping or rising as the illusory appearances of luminosity. Even his prostrations and circumambulations show the very expression of Buddhahood. When he dances or shows some expression, it is the intentional act of a Buddha. Whether he appears angry or impassioned, regard him as an enlightened Buddha. Even if he kills 100 people at once, it is the work of a Buddha to benefit beings. Even if he enjoys 100 queens, it is Mahamudra, the wisdom of great bliss. Whatever wishes and ambitions may appear are free from desire, the state of Buddhahood. Are all the acts of a Buddha. Whatever you see him do is the path of excellence. Whatever you hear him say is the sacred Dharma. Whatever he thinks is the glory of omniscience. For a guru, to be confused is virtually impossible, since it won't happen if what you perceive appears to be confusion. This is your own perception, your own impure mind. Just as one who is visually impaired manifestly perceives snow to be black, though it is impossible for snow ever to be black, just as a jaundiced person perceives a conch to be yellow, though it actually always is white, and just as one with perverted desires may see water as pus, blood, and weapons, though no pus, blood, and weapons are there, therefore if misperceptions arise concerning the Guru's liberated life, the path to liberation will be blocked. Since the Guru is acting skillfully to tame beings, know that his or her actions are symbolic and skillful methods. So we would see the teacher as the embodiment of enlightenment manifest in front of us. So we wouldn't see the teacher as an ordinary person. So we would see the teacher sometimes as Vajradhara, sometimes as Padmasambhava, as Yeshe Tsogyal, as the deity, and so forth, and never ever consider that this is just an ordinary relationship, just as one person to the next. So we don't objectify the teacher as an external person. We don't really see that the teacher is limited to the person who travels to different places and who eats and has this and who we want to hang out with and so forth. We should see the teacher really as the embodiment of enlightenment. And so anything that happens, we should view as just the display. But in this case, where our display normally is tainted by confusion, there's a crack in the density of our confusion, and the light of enlightenment is somehow shining forth due to aspects and merit, aspects of our purity and merit. Then in front of us, there is enlightenment taking place. So the teacher is not ordinary, and so our actions, hence, are rather perceptions, really. And if we want to have the actually benefit from this extraordinary fortune, then this is the view that we would take. Tongsi Rinpoche, he'll very often insist that he's just an ordinary confused person, but despite that, then it's our job as students to just see him as enlightenment. So it's a very sort of transparent relationship, and Rinpoche's relaxed attitude around this, and this is not just Rinpoche, but any great teacher, is very self-deprecatory, very humble, very simple, straightforward. And so I don't think we should be deceived by the appearances. And it really doesn't conflict with all the more actually appreciating their purity. And so the lines that we just read here then definitely applies in this process. Here, in terms of the definitive truth, such enlightened beings have been free of fault from the very beginning. Once you feel sure of this, from the very core of your being, all excellent qualities will occur quite spontaneously. On this point, the Master Nagarjuna wrote, if someone were to fall from the peak of Mount Meru, even if that person were to think he was not falling, he still falls. Once you have received beneficial transmissions through the Guru's kindness, well, you may think that you're not becoming liberated. You are. To generate great respect, you need to see even a rebuke as a Dharma teaching. And even if the Guru hits or beats you, you need to see it as a blessing. The scriptural divisions then explain, in brief, beatings and scoldings, wrathful mantras, doing battle, stabbing and hitting with weapons, whatever the Guru does, is only a method to eliminate one's defilements of faults. Disrespect toward the Guru should be relinquished. The acts of enlightened body, speech, and mind are all the miraculous display of the dance of a Buddha. Do not think of them in any other way. If you do, you will have turned your back on spiritual attainments. To lose devotion is to be in Mara's grasp. You will have many illnesses, a short life, and you will fall into the lower realms. So the implication here is that in that the teacher is never for a moment anything else except just enlightenment manifest, we would never ever see whatever comes from the teacher as being anything other than possessing these various the enlightened intention and just being skillful means. So particularly we would say scoldings from a teacher is also, we have this in the torchlighting the way. Scolding from a teacher is viewed as being something that is immensely, something that purifies all our obscurations. And so while in our culture, again, we have a rather, business-like relationship in the context of the modern yoga world and the general presentation of meditation as being part of psychological practice, then of course that's completely different. That's the teacher as a commodity, a teacher as just in the ordinary sense. So of course that doesn't apply. And so then the style that we're seeing here, this goes beyond just the scope of these ordinary projects of just mental health, well-being, and so forth. This is about enlightenment, and there we would say a compassionate teacher can very well be wrathful. In fact, this is seen as far greater compassion, much more engagement with the student. So this is something that regardless of the display of the teacher, then it is viewed as enlightenment. Of course, this is something that has gained a lot of attention in recent time. And there's a lot to be said about that. I can refer to the comments that certainly Tsongsa Khyentse Rinpoche has been coming. And also a very good article I was reading the other day by Mingyur Rinpoche on the situation with wrathful teachers and so forth. So we should understand that the path to enlightenment is not simple, and certainly the teacher is not limited also to just being somebody who takes the role of an academic and just imparts dry information. It's a very living situation, and those of us who have lived life will know that the relationship with others and so many of the things we've learned in life don't necessarily come from books or from pleasant experiences, but very often from being shaken up. So the point is then in that we engage, if we've seen somebody and we've decided that they are the teacher, then we would want to appreciate all their activities of body, speech, and mind as coming from enlightenment. So Jigme Lingpa says, thus, in light of this, your guru who has exhausted all faults and perfected every enlightened quality is no different than the consummately purified and realized Buddhas. Nevertheless, your inferior merit and karma prevent you from accurately perceiving the appearance aspect of the guru's three kayas, which is why the guru manifests in an ordinary way. So the guru's three kayas is the complete absence of confusion, the complete absence of duality. This is the Dharmakaya. And then within that, all the unfolding of countless qualities and the joy of enlightenment, which is the Sambhogakaya, and then the bodily form that manifests in front of us as the teacher who is here in this world. So these are not three different things. These are all one. But as far as our perception goes, we might just perceive the Guru's physical and verbal manifestations. Yet also when we have devotion, we also perceive the inner qualities, which is then perceiving the Guru's Sambhogakaya, all the countless qualities of strength and compassion and wisdom and so on, and also the complete lack of anything artificial, anything deluded. The teacher is not a philosopher. The teacher has not learned how to behave or how to be enlightened. Rather, it's the complete falling away of confusion that is the ground for both the manifestations of qualities and also presence in the world. So this is the Dharmakaya. So we would understand that the teacher in front of us is the embodiment of the teacher in the three kayas. Okay, let's see if there's any questions. Okay, here's some advice on henbane. Okay, henbane is a plant. The leaf of it is used to make medicine. Don't confuse henbane, sometimes called fetid nightshade or stinking nightshade, with bittersweet nightshade, Solanum dulcamara, or deadly nightshade, belladonna. Henbane leaf is used for spasms of the digestive tract. Okay, thank you. How to differentiate someone who is not a genuine teacher from a skillful guru in display? All we have to go on is their behavior. So true, and so that is why and this of course is a big issue with a modern culture in which the whole guru-student relationship is really something very new. And that is why there's such an emphasis on really being discerning about the teacher. We might have friends who in their enthusiasm says you must come and receive this empowerment with that teacher, and you must come and meet my guru, he's the greatest or she's the greatest in the world. But actually we have to be very restrained and sane and careful. So even though you might have heard me go on about my teachers, then you're gonna have to make your own choice. And so it is very much it's a question of finding a genuine teacher and then also finding out about chemistry. Some teachers have a particular style that might not quite gel with the way that we like to be and so on. So there is such a process. And of course, then once we have some feeling that this teacher might be authentic, then there's more sensitivity to what lies beyond just the behavior, the qualities of the unseen qualities. But it's a big one. And of course, we would say we were luckier in some of the traditional Asian cultures where it's kind of known who can be trusted and who can't be trusted. How do we know when to believe or not believe the guru when he tells us something if it can have contradictory meanings? E.g., I'm just an ordinary person. Well, then again, this is where it applies, whether or not we see this person as a teacher. In the case of, for example, myself, with Longchen Rinpoche, he will always be the first to insist that he's just an ordinary person. And and Rinpoche also actually, recently I heard him say something to that effect also. And my job actually as a student is to just think that that's really just him being modest. And I have to say, it really does come from not just that it's my job, but I actually do think so. And also it makes it so much easier around both Dingpo Chenzo Rinpoche and the other teachers that I've had the privilege to study with, like Jigme Rinpoche, Tuku Pema Wangyal, and so forth, all have this wonderful humility, and it makes it so simple, really. There's no pomp and deception going on. But at the same time, I think we need to not be fooled and really see the sublime qualities in this appearance of ordinary person. Seeing whatever the guru does as a Buddha's activity can lead to abuse when the guru is actually not realized. So we have examples of that, and that is so true. And that's also where this is an unfortunate condition, really, where in the modern world we need to We need to actually be discerning when our friends might be saying, oh, come on in. We can, of course, receive meditation instruction, study the Buddha, the Buddhist teaching and so forth in all the many Dharma organizations. But we should be very wary of engaging in the Vajrayana kind of relationship. And that is, of course, what we're talking about in the present study. So that's where there has to be really a discerning. Personally, I would also say on my journey, I've come across people or teachers who I just didn't gel with. I just didn't think they were persons that I would like to study the Dharma with. So we have to be discerning in this regard. But of course, we have some upheavals now as a result of this situation. Should one maintain these attitudes toward a teacher in the Mahayana tradition or Kalyana Mitra? The answer just to that question is actually that in the Mahayana, then we have a more academic or politically correct relationship with the teacher. There's a certain sense of the teacher being a wonderful, loving person, and so on. We respect the teacher and so on, but at the same time, there's not the notion of the non-dual manifestation of enlightenment embodied in front of us as the Nirmanakaya. So it's a different relationship. So that's the question, and then the person continues, or should one only maintain this pure perception relationship with a teacher who has authorized this attitude and openly holds the position of a guru with whom the student can practice the guru yoga? Yes, yes, exactly. So once we have engaged with a teacher in a Vajrayana context, then it's different. And so, for example, in the Ngondro context of the Tsongtse Rinpoche's context, then actually when one reaches the Guru Yoga, then that is actually a time when one would ask Tsongtse Rinpoche, should I now be your student? Would you like to be my teacher? Can I become your student? And so on. It's not always that linear. You might have complete trust in a teacher even before you begin the Ngondro. And so, while it's not linear, what you're putting up there in terms of definitions, that's quite accurate, yes. If we treat someone as a guru in spite of them saying they're not, does that matter? Well, if we consider them being a guru, then yes. And for sure, a real guru will not say, oh, it's good that you're very devoted to me because I'm enlightened. That probably is highly unlikely. It could happen, but not that likely. So you will inevitably... So inevitably, that is what happens. We will be treating people as a guru in spite of them insisting that they're just a bundle of kleshas and confusions. So how can we repay the guru's kindness, even though his kindness is irrepayable? Practicing. We're actually going to look at that, but what we're looking at presently actually is how we repay it in terms of pure perception, mainly for our own sake, also attending to the teacher, and above all then, practicing the teacher's instructions. Is guruness a projection, i.e. a non-guru for you, but a non-guru for you, but a guru for me? Well, it's not so much projection, it's just karmic fortune, lateral or karmic connections from the past. So, and it's something that manifests as Buddha nature. So unfortunately, our Buddha nature, of course, is ours, and it's not exactly a projection. It's rather, we call it Nirmanakaya or Tulku. That's what it is. So of course, not everybody would be seeing the same things. How do the three kayas relate to the three roots? Well, sometimes we would say they really are. We would say all the three roots actually embody all the three roots, the Guru and the Deva and the Dagini, all are embodiments, various aspects of embodying the three roots. But we sometimes do say the Guru is the Dharmakaya, the deity is the appearance aspect of the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya, and the Dakini is the compassionate display of all phenomena. So in that way, Dhammakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya. Guru, Lama Yidam Kandro, Chuku Longku Truku. Guru Devadakini, Dhammakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya. To what degree can I trust the voice and appearance of the teacher within my own mind, also in my nighttime stream, etc.? I'm experiencing a continuous inner relationship with the teacher that seems to be authentic and trustworthy, but presumably the potential for deception is quite high. Indeed it is. We probably should not, in general, regardless of whether they are what we call wisdom phenomena or if they're karmic phenomena, regardless of the two, one being enlightened, one being confused, regardless of it, even if it's wisdom phenomena, we will actually enhance the capacity for that through not being attached to it in any way. Just so not being attached. So we, I think, should just say, oh, that's nice that these positive experiences are happening, but not being too attached to them. It seems that for an ordinary sentient being with myriad afflictive emotions, determining who a pure guru is constitutes a leap of faith, and in this faith, pure view is born, depending on previous causes and circumstances. Sort of a catch-22 situation. It is indeed, because the more there's faith, then there's more seeing the qualities of the guru and so forth. At the same time, I think it is important really that particularly in view of present circumstances and so forth, I think like Longchen Rabjam makes a point, there really is in the modern world a condition of maturation taking place. And so it's good with all these upheavals that are taking place as something that's rather sobering. When I came to the Dharma, there was it was things like practicing and studying with the guru was really trending in the youth scene of Europe and North America, and probably South America too. But it was very much the modern world falling in love with the idea, and there was a lot of naivete. And so presently, the circumstances are sobering up. But I think still, with our aspirations to really see clearly and also using our common sense, then slowly engaging and checking out definitely will enable us to find somebody. And we still have a living tradition of great masters. So it's not an impossible situation. It's just there clearly is a need for a very sober inquiry on this path. So if Vajrayana Guru gives us formal refuge, then he or she is saying, I am a guru. Well, I think more at the time of empowerment. The Vajrayana Guru will also be there as a teacher who gives just refuge and also general teachings. And as such, the Vajrayana teacher is taking on the role of just being an ordinary Buddhist Kalyana Mitra or spiritual friend. It's only really when it becomes receiving of empowerment that we need to, that he or she is taking on the role of being a guru. Would it be correct to say that to be ordinary is like the most difficult thing of all? So in that sense, to say that the teacher is ordinary is actually saying quite a bit about them. Well, that's where we maybe would say that ordinariness, which is the primordial condition of the unconfused mind, is extraordinary from the confused mind, in that the present condition for us tends to be defined by our confusion. So in that sense, the guru is extraordinary. But also then, yes, it's delightful to see the simplicity of an enlightened person, just being very down to earth. I remember once one of my friends, he was asking about Jamgun Mipam. He said to Dingochenzi, he said, Rinpoche, is it true that Jamgun Mipam, he's been reborn in Shambhala? And Khyentse Rinpoche says, I don't know, I haven't been there. My legs aren't very good. So the sort of ordinariness of teachers, obviously, is one way of appreciating their enlightened qualities. Like Tongse Rinpoche also says, we probably would want a teacher who does order pizza and eats it with us. Hi Jakob, how do we ask Tongse Rinpoche to be our teacher? I would say write to his secretary. If you want, send it via me. I'll forward your request. Then again, I would say if we feel that Tongse or any teacher is our teacher already there in that attitude, then there already is a connection with the teacher. So I would say on a practical level, then there might be some formal situation, Rinpoche teaching and so forth that we could go to. But also until then, it's completely legit really to think Rinpoche is my teacher and keep that thought and make that basic to our practice, our relationship. So we're having rephrasing the question. So if Vajrayana Guru gives us formal refuge, then he or she is saying, I am a guru? No, just refuge itself can actually be given by anybody. Even we could do it on our own. In Jewel Ornament of Liberation, there's explanation how to do it. And we could also receive it from a friend. So that taking refuge, it does not imply that the teacher is saying he or she is a guru. At what point do we stop assessing the authenticity? Is that at refuge or at empowerment? That's at empowerment. So that's why, the caution around the Vajrayana is the sort of sticking point really here is the Vajrayana and the notion that until we're absolutely certain that a teacher is really undiluted, someone who is a genuine Vajrayana guru, then until then we wouldn't want to take empowerment with the person. But of course it happens. It happens culturally that we're together with people who will say, you can trust my guru. So of course that happens. And so all of a sudden, at a very early stage, we might have received empowerment. So at that point, I would say then, if you might be lucky to have had good friends who introduced you to a good teacher, but then of course it still applies that you'd want to then gradually over the years sort of assert yourself, the value of the teacher. Let's hope so. Okay. All right. How are we doing for time? Yeah, still a little bit more. There was just one last question there. I didn't quite see it. Something about can we take refuge vows ourselves? I think the answer is yes, but let me just come back. So, as is written in the gathering of the Masters of Awareness Tantra, the Buddhas and their heirs manifest in forms that match their disciples. Now, this is also what we should understand. The teacher will manifest according to our specific needs, obviously according to our possibly likes or expectations, but also then the teacher will, depending on who we are, be according to that. So once we have accepted the teacher, all of a sudden the teacher might be overwhelming, and that's where we should think that the teacher's style is exactly according to our needs. Jigme Lingpa continues, furthermore, the inner clarity of the Dharmakaya Buddha, the youthful vase body, is ennobled by 6 unique qualities relative to the all-ground. These are qualities that distinguish the Dharmakaya, but I can't remember them right now. Not that I can't remember them. I have read them somewhere, but I haven't ever memorized them. Anyway, that we would say there are some 6 specific qualities that are special to then this Buddha nature. And youthful vase body is seen as the Dharmakaya that lives within. So this is Vajrayana speak, or particularly Dzogchen speak actually, for Buddha nature. This primordial protector is beheld with the wisdom of consummate purification and realization. It is not within the experiential range of anyone else. The Sambhogakaya is endowed with the 5 certainties and the 7 aspects of union. It does not appear to anyone other than those extraordinary disciples who have mastered the 10 grounds. A Nirmanakaya Buddha has mastery of the 10 strengths, the 4 fearlessnesses, and so forth. This is the teacher of the listeners and solitary Buddhas. Other beings are bereft of the merit required to receive the kindness of a Nirmanakaya Buddha. It is not that those who manifest the 3 kayas are biased and have intentionally spurned us. Rather, it is our own inferior karma and circumstances that prevent us from meeting those Buddhas and becoming a fit vessel to receive their teaching, just as the sun doesn't shine on a north-facing cave. The fact that you have fallen into the boundless dungeon of samsara and have been here as long as you have comes down to nothing more than this. That said, to have obtained a human existence and met with an enlightened teacher is extremely fortunate. It is said in many sutras and tantras that the Buddhas will emanate as masters that take the form of ordinary people in order to benefit those of us who find ourselves in the final 500 years of this fortunate eon. This is how they will attain their disciples. Thus, your enlightened Guru as well is no ordinary person in terms of the definitive truth. From your perspective, your Guru is superior even to the Buddha, since he or she is the one who has actually taught you the instructions. Even if you were to meet the Buddha face to face, adorned as he is with the major and minor marks, there isn't anything he could do that would be greater than teaching you the vast and profound sacred Dharma and leading you to the state of liberation and omniscience. Therefore, if you are able to put into practice the meaning of what you learned while properly serving a teacher, have no doubt that you will attain the states of the higher realms and definite goodness. So we would say the teacher that we have is equal in qualities to all the Buddhas. Whatever the Buddhas would do, they wouldn't be able to miraculously beam us up into enlightenment, but they would teach us how to do so. But that is exactly the same that what our teacher does. However, so we would say our teacher and all the Buddhas of the 3 times in 10 directions, our teacher is no different from any of them in that regard. But our teacher is kinder because we couldn't meet all these other great Buddhas, but we could meet this present teacher who has given us instructions. So from our point of view, then the teacher has been kinder to us. It's like we realize that parents everywhere are kind, but the parents that we experienced might have been the ones that we experience as being particularly kind, or others in our lives. We realize there's many great people out there, but we encounter some people with whom something wonderful happens, and we realize the equanimity of all beings, but we also have profound gratitude to those who have been present within our lives. And so then the kindness of the teacher is seen as being far greater. And this then enables us, with these instructions, we can gain the higher realms, higher rebirth, and definite goodness then means enlightenment. Okay, I think that's probably it for today. How do we give refuge vow ourselves? Gosh, I've had the fortune of having it done to me, but in the jewel ornament, there's actually there's some instructions there. As far as I gather, it is that we simply have a shrine with a Buddha statue, and if we even don't have that, then we visualize the teacher in front of us, and then we take refuge. And this we continue doing then as until enlightenment, basically. So as a practitioner of the path, this is something that we do daily. So we daily take refuge. But initially, if we're not a Buddhist and we wish to take refuge, then we can do that. And like I was saying before, even if we feel that a particular guru is our teacher, we can also then consider the teachers there and then take refuge. What happens if you have empowerment from a not reliable teacher? Oh, that's all right, that happens. And then you would really just think, may this teacher fare well. This teacher is someone who I received empowerment from. I was very kind to this teacher, but presently not viewing this person as my teacher anymore. Then we just wish the teacher well. I think that's the best we can do. Also, how can we give refuge vows to others? I don't know. People actually, because I have this instructor role, people have asked me. I found some text, but I've never done it myself, so I'm not quite the person to ask. There are in some sanghas, the sort of younger students, or some of those who have titles of various kinds, they give refuge. So that happens, but I'm not quite sure how you do it. You'd have to ask somebody who's given them. Okay. I guess that's it for today. Can we take you as a Vajrayana master? I'm very glad to ask you, and I'd like to be very clear. No, you would only receive Vajrayana empowerment from a qualified person. And here I'm absolutely positive. And you ask Tsonsa Khensa Rinpoche his opinions about me. Anyway, very flattered that you asked, but no, not possible. Okay, I guess that's it for today. Thank you all for joining this study. Shall see you next week. We're back at our monastery here. I'll find out which one it is. I'll try. It's not always easy. The previous one I had, actually, I wouldn't have known how to, but since this is from Matthew, maybe there's a note somewhere. Through this virtue may all beings throughout existence awaken together without a single being left behind. In the pure realm of the luminous essence, the ground of the great perfection, may they remain inseparable from the kayas and wisdoms. Through all our births, wherever we may be born, may we be endowed with the 7 good qualities of the higher realms. As soon as we are born, may we meet with the Dharma and have the freedom to practice it properly. At that time, may we please the holy gurus and practice the Dharma throughout day and night. Realizing the Dharma and accomplishing its essential meaning, may we cross the ocean of existence in that life. Thoroughly teaching the holy Dharma in this world, may we never tire of accomplishing the benefit of others. By this vast benefit of others, without partiality or bias, may all attain Buddhahood together.